when the factory director's son dragged my drunk fiancé into the supply warehouse. I pretended I didn't see anything. I just turned around and left. Last time, I screwed up my whole life by running in there and beating him up. They even set me up for stealing from the warehouse. When the warehouse manager showed up with the cops, my fiancée ripped her own clothes on purpose. She started crying and told everyone she came to stop me from stealing. But I beat her up and assaulted her. Everyone thought I was garbage. I became a criminal. My fiancé's parents couldn't take all the gossip, so they made me marry her. But that marriage, it was just the beginning of hell. She lived like a queen at home but told everyone I was starving her. When she got pregnant, she slammed her belly into the table corner on purpose. And she stood outside crying, saying I abused her and tried to kill our baby. My parents felt sorry for me. They borrowed money from everyone they knew to get her a job. But when she got that job, she framed my dad for stealing steel from the factory. 6 months after my dad went to prison, he died there from getting sick. My mom couldn't handle it and got really sick, too. He died soon after. When that brick wall collapsed on me at the construction site, she didn't call for help. She picked up a brick and smashed it into my head. If you weren't such a busybody, Jeremy and I would have been together by now. We wouldn't have wasted all this time. My head was bleeding and I was buried under all that rubble. When I opened my eyes again, the flashlight beam didn't just illuminate 2 people. It sliced through the darkness to reveal a scene of absolute debauchery that silenced the entire crowd. Jeremy Ziegler was there, half-dressed, but he wasn't alone with Carly. Spread out on a tarp over crates of high-grade industrial silk were 2 other princelings, the sons of the deputy director and the chief of production. They were surrounded by empty bottles of expensive imported liquor and, more importantly, several open crates of specialized factory components, copper valves and precision gears that were strictly for export. Carly White was in the center of it, her blouse unbuttoned, her hair a bird's nest. When the door burst open, she didn't scream in terror. She looked annoyed, her eyes glazed with alcohol and something else, the high of being the center of attention for the city's most powerful young men. Jeremy? Stanley Ziegler's voice was a strangled croak. The police officer didn't hesitate. Hands where I can see them. This is a raid on a suspected smuggling ring. We have reports of state property being moved out of this warehouse at night. In my last life, I had run in like a rabid dog. I had given Carly the chance to scream rape and theft, because I was the only witness. But now? There were 30 witnesses, including Miss Lawrence, who was already scribbling notes on a pad, her eyes gleaming with the light of a woman about to become the new director's wife. Carly saw me. Even in her drunken stupor, the old instinct kicked in. She grabbed the front of her shirt, ripping the fabric further, and slumped to the floor. Shane, help me. They forced me. I came to stop them from stealing, and Jeremy. In the past, I would have been moved. I would have felt my heart break. Now, I just felt a wave of nausea. I didn't run to her. I stayed behind the police line, my face buried in my hands, my shoulders shaking. To everyone else, I looked like a man whose world had ended. In reality, I was biting my lip to keep from laughing. Miss White, the police officer said coldly, looking at the half-empty bottle of vodka in her hand and the way she had been lounging comfortably seconds before. We've been watching the perimeter for 20 minutes. You didn't look like a victim. You looked like the bookkeeper. He pointed to a ledger sitting near the copper valves. It was Carly's handwriting. She had been the one tracking the stolen goods Jeremy sold on the black market. Jeremy, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to play the director's son card. Do you know who my father is? Dad. Tell them. This is just a misunderstanding. Stanley Ziegler looked like he had aged 20 years. He looked at the cops, then at Miss Lawrence, then at the stolen crates. His eyes landed on me, the loyal, stupid Shane. He saw a lifeline. Shane, Stanley whispered, stepping toward me. You know Jeremy. He's impulsive, but he's not a thief. Tell the officers, tell them you were here with them. Tell them it was a party. We can fix this. He was asking me to take the fall. Again. If I admitted to being part of it, Jeremy would get a reprimand, and I would go to the labor camp. I looked up, my eyes red and streaming with tears. Mr. Ziegler, how could you? I thought you were like a father to me. You knew? You knew Jeremy was doing this to Carly? You knew they were taking the factory's exports? I turned to the police officer, my voice cracking. Officer, I'm so sorry. I tried to believe the best. But look at those crates. Those are the precision gears for the New York contract. If those are gone, the factory fails its quota. My father worked 30 years for this factory. He'd die if he saw this. Miss Lawrence seized the moment. Director Ziegler, are you attempting to coerce a witness in front of the authorities? This is a disgrace. Officer, I think you should check the director's office too. Who knows how deep this misunderstanding goes? As the handcuffs clicked onto Jeremy and Carly's wrists, Carly began to wail. Shane. I did it for us. We needed the money for the wedding. Jeremy promised me. I didn't say a word. I just watched as they were dragged past the crowd of workers, the same workers who, in another life, had spit on me and called me a rapist. Now, they looked at Carly with disgust and at Jeremy with hatred. Stanley Ziegler tried to follow them, but the police held him back. Mr. Ziegler, we need you for questioning regarding the inventory discrepancies. The first payment. The crowd dispersed as the police took the stray cats away. Miss Lawrence gave me a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. Shane, you're a good man. Too good for a girl like that. Go home. Get some rest. I nodded, acting the part of the broken-hearted fool until the last person left the warehouse yard. Kevin Cooper was still there, kneeling in the dirt where Stanley had kicked him. He was shaking, his bell-bottoms stained with urine. He looked at me, his eyes full of terror. He had seen the way I manipulated the situation. He wasn't as stupid as Carly. He knew I had changed. Shane, he whispered. I didn't mean it. Stanley forced me to say those things about the warehouse. He said if I didn't help Jeremy, he'd give my college spot to someone else. I walked over to him. The summer moon was high and cold. I reached down and picked up the brick he had shoved into my hand earlier. Kevin flinched, covering his head. Don't. Please. I didn't hit him. I just weighed the brick in my hand, feeling the rough texture. This was the same kind of brick Carly had used to finish me off in the rubble. The college spot, Kevin, I said softly. It was never yours. It was mine. I had the highest scores in the province. You and Stanley forged the documents. I'll give it back. Kevin cried. I'll go to the board tomorrow. I'll tell them the truth. You will, I said, leaning in close. But you won't just tell them about the spot. You're going to tell them about the steel ledger. The one Stanley keeps in his safe at home. The one that shows every ton of raw material he's diverted to the black market over the last 5 years. Kevin blinked. How do you know about that? Because ghosts see everything, Kevin. I patted his cheek, a gesture that made him whimper. Go home. If you go to the police tonight and turn state's evidence, maybe you'll only get 5 years. If you wait for Stanley to find a scapegoat, well, you saw how he kicked you today. He'll hang you out to dry. Kevin scrambled to his feet and ran toward the police station, not looking back once. The home front. When I got back to our small apartment, the lights were on. My parents were sitting at the small wooden table, looking worried. In my last life, this was the night I didn't come home. This was the night I began my journey to prison. Shane. My mom rushed over, seeing the mud and the blood on my knees. What happened? We heard there was trouble at the warehouse. My dad stood up, his face grim. Is it true? People are saying Jeremy and Carly, they were arrested? I looked at my father. He was a tall, strong man, a veteran of the factory floor. In the old timeline, he had withered away in a cell, his hair turning white, his lungs failing because of the damp prison air. I walked over and hugged him. I hugged him so tight he let out a grunt of surprise. I'm okay, Dad, I whispered, my voice thick with real emotion. Carly, she isn't who we thought she was. It's over. The engagement is off. My dad sighed, a sound of immense relief. I never liked that girl, Shane. She was too sharp, always looking for a way to climb higher. But I thought you loved her. I was blind, I said, stepping back. But I can see now. Dad, Mom, we need to be careful. Stanley Ziegler is going down, and he's going to try to take everyone with him. We need to stay quiet and let the Lawrence family finish him off. I spent the rest of the night cleaning my wounds and watching the street from the window. I knew the Zieglers wouldn't go down without a fight. Stanley had friends in the city government. But I had something better than friends. I had the map of their future. The trial of the century. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of scandals. With Kevin's testimony and the ledger Miss Lawrence found in Stanley's safe, with a little help from a lockpicking skill I'd learned during my years as a desperate construction worker, Stanley Ziegler was arrested for embezzlement and sabotage of state production. The story of the stray cats in the warehouse became a legend in the factory town. Carly White tried to maintain her victim status, but Jeremy, in a fit of cowardly rage, confessed that she had been his mistress for a year and had been the one to suggest the smuggling operation to pay for her family's debts. I was called to the police station for a final statement. As I walked through the hallway, I saw Carly. She was sitting on a wooden bench, handcuffed to a rail. She looked haggard. The queen had lost her crown. Her parents had already disowned her to save their own reputations. When she saw me, she lunged as far as the chain would allow. Shane, you have to tell them. You have to help me. I'm pregnant. It's yours, Shane. I swear it's yours. I stopped and looked at her. In the last life, this lie had worked. This lie had tethered me to her for years of abuse. I leaned down, my face inches from hers. The doctor already did the exam, Carly. You're not pregnant. And even if you were, Jeremy was the only one touching you for the last 6 months. I haven't even held your hand, remember? You were too strict for that. Carly's face twisted into a mask of pure hatred, the same face she had when she smashed the brick into my head. You did this. You knew. You stood outside and watched. I didn't just watch, Carly, I whispered. I enjoyed the show. And I'm going to enjoy watching you spend the next 10 years in a textile prison. Think of me when you're sewing those uniforms. Think of the lazy pig who was trash but somehow ended up with everything. I walked away, her screams echoing in the sterile hallway. The new path. A month later, the factory was under new management. Miss Lawrence's husband was the interim director. My father was promoted to warehouse manager, the job Stanley had once used to entice Jeremy's friends. My mother's health, which had begun to fail in the old life due to stress, was better than ever. I stood at the train station, a small suitcase in my hand. The Provincial Education Board had cleared my name. Kevin Cooper had been stripped of his credentials and banned from any state-level employment. The college spot was officially returned to me. My parents stood on the platform, waving. Study hard, Shane, my mom called out, tears of joy in her eyes. Make us proud. I will, Mom, I shouted back. As the train pulled away, I sat back in the hard-cushioned seat. I looked at my hands. They were clean. No MUD, no blood, no bricks. I had been reborn into a nightmare, but I had turned it into a dream. Jeremy and Stanley were gone. Carly was behind bars. Kevin was a non-entity. The construction site where I had died didn't even exist yet. It was just an empty lot on the outskirts of the city. As the train passed it, I made a silent vow. I would never go back there. I would never be buried under rubble again. I pulled a textbook from my bag, mechanical engineering. I had a world to build, and this time, the foundations would be made of something stronger than lies. The sun rose over the horizon, casting a golden light over the tracks ahead. I closed my eyes and breathed in the scent of coal smoke and freedom. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was finally home. Epilogue, the letter. 5 years later. I was a lead engineer at a state-run design institute in the capital. I had a wife, a kind, intelligent woman who actually loved me, and a young son. I received a letter from my hometown. It was from Miss Lawrence. Dear Shane. I thought you should know. Stanley Ziegler passed away in prison last week. Jeremy is still serving his time, though they say he's lost his mind. And Carly. Carly was released on parole last month. She came back to the factory looking for work, but nobody would hire her. Last I heard, she was wandering the streets near the old supply warehouse, talking to herself about stray cats. We all still talk about you here. The boy who stood up for the factory when everyone else was stealing it blind. You're a hero to us, Shane. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. I wasn't a hero. I was just a man who had been given a second chance to not be a fool. I stood up and walked to the window of my office, looking out at the sprawling city. The world was large, and it was full of people like Carly and Jeremy. But they didn't scare me anymore. Because I knew exactly how to handle a brick. The end. I was standing at the warehouse entrance. Inside, I could hear my fiance's soft, flirty voice. I stood in the shadows. It was the middle of summer. But I was covered in cold sweat. Everything that happened before flashed through my mind. The depression and fear felt so real. But I held myself back from running in there and killing them both. I turned around and walked back to the employee cafeteria. Near the warehouse. The warehouse manager was throwing a party today. It should have been over by now. But he'd invited so many important people that he was pumped up. Keeping everyone drinking late into the night. After I got back to the cafeteria, Sat down at the workers' table. As I lifted my glass, someone slapped me on the back. Why are you still drinking here? Your girl's running off with someone else. My childhood friend Kevin Cooper was standing behind me. He leaned in and whispered in my ear. He sounded pissed. I snorted and said without turning around, "Cut the crap. She's not my wife yet." I was afraid if I turned around, I'd reach out and strangle him. Last time he stole my college spot when he came home. For winter break, he made sure to visit my house and show off. And we started huge fights between Carly White and me. Shane Carter, why would I marry trash like you? All you do is eat and sleep like a lazy pig. Before I would have defended myself. Don't you know how my college spot got stolen? Oh, my God. What a waste. Did you want me to tell everyone? The factory director's son was harassing me? If I did that, both our families would be screwed. Just admit you're useless and can't even protect your woman. You're trash. You only blame me. I can't take this anymore. She'd even go outside, sit on the ground and pull her hair. She'd cry and say I abused her. The neighbors would beat me up. Even dragged me to the local women's shelter and humiliated me in public. Later, I stopped defending myself. No matter how nasty she got. I just took it silently. When that brick wall knocked me down and I was dying, Kevin ran up in his fancy leather jacket and bell-bottoms to show off. That's when I realized he'd known all along that Carly and Jeremy were into each other. Sent me over there that day just to steal my college spot. I wasn't falling for his trap again. When Kevin saw I wasn't moving, he anxiously walked over and grabbed my arm. I saw some guy dragging Carly into the warehouse. If something happens to her, how are you going to explain it to her family? I pushed his hand away. Jeremy, our factory director, Stanley Ziegler's son, said he'd take her home. What's the problem? You think he's going to do something? I said it loud enough so the warehouse manager and the directors from nearby factories at the next table could hear. They looked over. What's going on over there? What about Mr. Ziegler's son? I stood up right away and said, annoyed, Mr. Wilson, saying Jeremy's being a creep and trying to make a move on my fiancé. I think Jeremy's a good guy. He wouldn't do that. Stanley's friends jumped into, yeah. We watched that kid grow up. Kevin, you're spreading lies about Jeremy. You want to lose your job? Kevin's knees buckled and he dropped into a chair. He tried to deny it. I didn't spread lies. Hey, I cut him off. Mr. Ziegler's always been good to me. When his son gets accused of something like this, I gotta stand up for him. I'm gonna prove you're lying. After that, all the factory directors at that table stood up. We should go check this out. This is serious, Kevin. If you're making up sick rumors to cause trouble, you're done. I looked down to hide my smile. I grabbed Kevin, who was shaking with fear, and we followed the crowd to the warehouse. As we got close to the warehouse, we heard soft, gasping sounds coming from inside. A woman's voice was trembling, and each sound was pure passion. A few of the older workers' ears turned red and they stepped back. I stopped walking. I acted like I was shocked by the sounds from the warehouse. I stopped the crowd from rushing forward. My voice shook everyone. Wait. Let me check first. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Carly's not like that and Jeremy wouldn't do this. As I said that, my eyes got red and I clenched my fists so tight my knuckles turned white. I looked like the perfect loyal guy who couldn't accept the truth. Misunderstanding. A woman in a gray outfit suddenly stepped forward. She was Miss Lawrence from the factory office. She frowned. That voice sounds like Jeremy to me. If they're really doing it in the warehouse, that's serious. We have to check. She didn't let anyone interrupt. She turned and yelled at a young officer behind her. Go tell Mr. Ziegler to get over here. Then she whispered to him again. I was standing close so I heard her tell him to call the police too. I smirked to myself. Her husband had been eyeing Stanley's job for a while. He wasn't gonna miss this chance to take him down. I acted like I didn't hear anything. I just grabbed Kevin with a sad, hopeless look. You're my best friend. Come with me. Before he could say no, I dragged him toward the warehouse door. The door was shut tight but Carly's voice was clear faster. Jeremy's heavy breathing could be heard too. I clenched my fists and stood there frozen. Like my feet were stuck to the ground. Kevin tried to push past me. Is that really Carly? When I didn't answer, he kept going. You're so good to her and you're about to marry her. You even spent everything you had on wedding gifts. If I were you, I couldn't just stand here. When he saw I wasn't moving, gritted his teeth like he'd made up his mind. He turned around, picked up a brick and shoved it in my hand. He whispered urgently, Shane. This isn't right. I'm here with you. Just run in there and beat them up. His eyes had that sneaky look. He clearly wanted me to rush in like I did last time. It didn't matter that Carly would embarrass me if I hit Jeremy. The factory would definitely take away my college spot. And probably fire me, too. That way he'd get all the benefits again. Last time when they framed me in front of the cops, Kevin stepped up and backed their story. He said, I told him I wanted to steal from the warehouse. Thinking about that made me even more disgusted. I shoved him away so hard he staggered into the wall. I let myself slip and fall, scraping my knees and elbows on the ground. Blood streaked down. My pants were covered in mud when I ran back to the crowd. I wiped my face. Tears were streaming down, leaving muddy streaks. My voice shook. No, there's nothing to see. Just some stray cats in heat. I chased them off. Let's go back. Stray cats. Mr. Wilson from the warehouse frowned. He looked pissed. There's grain and cotton in there. What if the cats chewed through the bags? We gotta go check. Walked toward the warehouse, but I rushed forward and stopped him. My hands were shaking. You really don't need to go in. I checked. Nothing's damaged. Please, believe me. Right after I said that, a man's moan came from the warehouse. The pleasure in his voice was obvious. Every guy there knew what that sound meant. The crowd went crazy. Few young workers pushed me aside to rush in, but I grabbed the arm of the guy in front crying. Don't go in, please. I'm begging you. When they saw I wouldn't say anything else. Someone looked at Kevin, grabbed his collar and asked, What's going on in there? If you don't tell the truth, I'll kick your ass. Kevin's face went pale. He glanced at the warehouse door, looking freaked out. He knew if he admitted Jeremy was in there, he'd regret it. He wouldn't even keep his job, let alone the college spot he was supposed to get. He gulped. It's really just stray cats. Shane and I chased them away. It's true. Miss Lawrence walked up and stared at Kevin hard. If it's just stray cats, why? Were you spreading rumors that Jeremy and Carly were in the warehouse? Either go turn yourself in at the police station, or I'll take you there myself. Kevin dropped to his knees, hard tears running down his face. He couldn't say a word. Right then. A loud voice boomed from behind the crowd. Who's spreading rumors about my son? Stanley walked forward. I saw Kevin kneeling on the ground and kicked him in the chest. You little punk, you dare frame my son. He kicked Kevin until he almost collapsed. Kevin's pants got wet. He knew he was either getting fired or arrested. No way out. I walked up and held Stanley back. I said, sadly, Mr. Ziegler, please don't get upset. I believe Jeremy is a good person and Carly won't betray me. Her family is broke, so I give them my whole paycheck. You wouldn't betray me like that. Plus, we've been engaged for years. But she won't even let me hold her hand. She's really strict about that stuff. She'd never do this. Tears ran down my face. Everyone could tell from how sad I looked that something was definitely going on in that warehouse. Right on cue, loud howls suddenly echoed from the warehouse. A group of cops walked over and headed straight for the warehouse. I went up and tried to stop them. Officers, there's nothing in there. Please don't go in. But a cop pushed me aside and said, seriously? Someone reported theft from the warehouse. I have to investigate. This time I couldn't stop him. With a loud bang, the cop kicked the warehouse door open. When the flashlight beam swept around and lit up everything inside, everyone screamed and backed away. There were way more than 2 people in that warehouse.